What's good, football fans? So, week 7 is in the books for the college football season. And so, with that, I will be doing my bracket and who I think should be in the college football playoff following the week 7 games. And so, we'll start like we did last week. I will start with the first four out. And we have a newcomer to this group, and that team is Indiana. And no, it is not basketball season. Yes, that Indiana. So, what a job that Kurt Signetti has done in his first year with Indiana. They're 6-0. But the problem with Indiana is that they have a weak schedule. So, they need to get that marquee win. And the good news for them is that they have an opportunity to get that marquee win coming up in November with back-to-back games against Ohio State and Michigan. And the Ohio State game is on the road. So, here in a few short weeks, we'll find out who Indiana really is. But nonetheless, uh, what a job that Kurt Signetti has done in his first year with the Hoosiers. And then as far as the other teams, BYU, Notre Dame, and Texas A&M, and BYU, they need to find that signature win. And so, we'll see what happens going forward. Notre Dame, they're starting to turn the corner. They've gotten a whole lot better after that loss to Northern Illinois, and then Texas A&M again. Looks like they may have found something also. So my first four out is BYU, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, and Indiana. All right, so now let's do the top four seeds. So these are your conference champions. Texas clearly number one. They steamrolled Oklahoma this past weekend in the Red River rivalry game. Texas, I mean, until someone beats them, they're the best team in the country right now. They do have a big test this weekend, though, coming up against Georgia. More on that later. So number two, I now have Oregon. So Oregon had that big win over Ohio State this past Saturday, and this was a home game. This was a back and forth matchup, and the two best teams in the Big Ten clearly. And so, and this might be a Big Ten championship game preview. This might possibly be a college football playoff matchup preview. So we'll see what happens going forward. But Oregon, very impressed with what I saw out of them. Dylan Gabriel played very well, and so I have Oregon at number two. Number three, I have Iowa State. So if you remember, I had Miami at number three and Iowa State at four. I switched these two teams around. So Miami was off this week. But Iowa State, they had a big win on the road versus West Virginia. And they've had a couple of good wins also. That win that they had against Iowa early in the season is starting to look a lot better now. Iowa, they've gotten a lot better on offense. And so very impressed with what I see out of them. And then Miami, they had a bye this week, but, I still think Miami is the best team in the ACC right now. They had that, last two games that they've had against Cal and Virginia Tech, they've had to come from behind to win those games. And so, we'll see what Miami can do going forward. So now we move to the first round, and we will start with the 12th seed. And that is clearly Boise State. I still think they're the best group of five team out there. Now, don't look now, but both Army and Navy, they are ranked in the AP Top 25, something that has not happened in decades. And that Army-Navy game in December could have a whole lot more meaning to it now. Just keep that in mind. And see, Notre Dame still has to play both of them, I believe. So, shout out to both Army and Navy. It's good to see the service academies do well. But still, Boise State, I know they had that loss to Oregon, but it was on the road, and it was a close loss at that. And so until a group of five team beats Boise, they're still going to be the best team among the group of five teams. So I have number 12, Boise State. Number 11, I have Alabama. So I know Alabama won this weekend, but it was another close loss or a close win. And they're coming off of that. They were coming off of that historic upset to Vandy, and they nearly got upset again, this time at home versus South Carolina. South Carolina turned the ball over late in the game after recovering an onside kick, mind you. So Bama, as well as Tennessee, who I have number 10, both of those teams are walking on some very thin ice right now. And Tennessee, they lost to Arkansas, and then they turn around, come back home, and nearly lose to Florida. And Tennessee had to go to overtime just to beat Florida. And, I'm not very impressed with what I see out of Nico Iamaleava. A lot of people were hyping him up, as was I. I thought he was going to have a good year. Now, maybe next year, or as the season goes on this year, he can get things turned around. But right now, Tennessee, they've got some issues, and they better get it figured out, or else they might get left out of the playoffs. So I have Tennessee at 10, and we have a newcomer to the playoffs this week, and that newcomer is LSU. So LSU, they had that big win in overtime this past weekend versus Ole Miss. And remember, I said that game was basically going to be a playoff elimination game, which essentially it is. Now, Ole Miss, I think still has an outside shot. They're going to need a lot of cards to fall their way. But I think their playoff hopes are just about done. So LSU, they keep their playoff hopes alive by winning that game. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens. Number 8, I have Clemson. So outside of that loss to Georgia, Clemson has looked very good. They've been steamrolling their opponents. I know the ACC is not the strongest conference, but a good team is supposed to blow out their opponents, if they truly are better than them, which Clemson is. And so, we'll see what Clemson does going forward. Their schedule is favorable. Perhaps they could meet Miami in the ACC championship game. So we'll have to see going forward. But I have Clemson at number 8. Number 7, I have Georgia. And so, I know Georgia, they got that big test on the road this weekend against Texas. But Georgia did not look very good last week against Mississippi State. I know Georgia is still good, but this is not the same Georgia team, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. This isn't the same Georgia defense that we have been used to seeing over the last 2 or 3 years. And so that's concerning if you're a Georgia fan. And so I know they had that loss to Alabama, which they nearly came back and won and probably should have won. But they did not look good against Mississippi State. And they were playing at home, too. And Mississippi State, I think it's safe to say they're the worst team in the SEC this year. And so that's concerning if you're Georgia. So I had Georgia at 5 last week. I dropped them 2 spots to 7. If they're better than Mississippi State, then they should be beating them by a whole lot more than what they did. So number 6, I have Penn State. So Penn State, they had to come from behind also to beat USC on the road. That game also went into overtime. And so they just keep finding ways to win. I know a couple times this year they've had to, come from behind, but they just found ways to win. And, this could be Penn State's year. I know with the Big Ten not having divisions, you don't have to play in the same division as Ohio State and Michigan, and so you don't have to play them every year. And so that could work out in Penn State's favor. And so with that, I have Penn State at 6. And then at number 5, I have Ohio State. So I know that loss to Oregon that they had was a tough pill to swallow. Great game back and forth. And so Ohio State is still very much in the mix as far as the national championship goes. And so I think they're going to be fine. So we'll see what happens going forward. But that is my college football playoff bracket after week 7. What does your bracket look like? Who do you think should be in? Who do you think should be out? Leave it down below in the comments section, guys. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, if you're new to this channel, be sure to subscribe and also hit the like button on this video. And on that note, I'll see you guys next time.